Welcome to The Difference Engine, the show for tech founders, investors, and innovators. What have we got on the show today?
Well, we'll be looking at the love affair between politicians and tech jobs and asking if the old SaaS playbook is the right road to category leadership today.
We'll also be taking a look at the aftermath of when Cisco and Linksys collided. But first, Elon's been at it again. But has he gone too far this time? The question, I think, on everybody's lips at the moment is, has Elon Musk gone mad?
Well, he's certainly in the news again a lot, and not, in our view, for good reasons. Has he finally pushed us all, even those who like his style a lot, has he pushed too far?
Perhaps he has.
Indeed. It's one thing to be edgy, and it's another thing entirely to fly into the abyss with a mad leap. We love category designers who think way outside the box and take massive risks and reframe problems in an innovative way.
And he's the epitome of that.
He is indeed.
Or has been.
On the other hand, some of us as former journalists and former PR pros know becoming the story is never advisable.
Not a good idea.
Now, this applies even more, we would argue, when you own the channel, the newspaper, or the social media site, which is parroting the story.
Yeah.
Did Elon Musk take this into account with his recent rants on X?
It appears that he hasn't.
Yeah, it appears not. Now, we all know Elon's controversial. He's readily evoking us to create more humans, and he sacked 80% of Twitter's, now X's staff, starting with the moderation team because of his free speech agenda. And he also supports President Trump.
Right.
You could say the guy's out there, but when he starts piling into matters very close to our home, the utterly controversial protests come riots, we've seen that fast track into multi-year convictions for quite elderly keyboard warriors who had created the heinous crime of sending ill-advised Facebook posts, and they were ill-advised, which built on the racist untruths of others. Should Elon even bother himself with that?
Well, I think even Elon would probably consider it a bad thing that he might just be creating, as we've discussed in previous episodes, a growth engine for threads. There seems to be an entirely new subject for virtue signaling on LinkedIn in recent weeks, which is why I'm deleting my X account.
Seen a lot of it. Yeah. So what happened, Elon, to sticks and stones? Was it actually necessary for you to post Civil War inevitable, or were you just saying it as you see it? Well, I'll tell you, one person who didn't see it that way is Keir Starmer.
Oh, yes.
He's grown a new hashtag as a result, two-tier Keir.
Yes.
Whether or not you agree with that, it certainly caused a lot of furore. And allegedly, to your point, a lot of his newly minted Labour MPs have got a dilemma because they know X gets them out to a massive audience and is a great way to get their news out. However, should they leave and join the virtue signaling?
Right, it's interesting because Elon seems to have even got under the skin of certain European commissioners and causing them to suddenly respond and get ticked off by their own organisation.
Absolutely. So Brussels is on fire with this. And we know that legislation and regulation in tech is coming hard. Now, over the years, Elon has riled a lot of people. So you mentioned senators, certainly competitors. I see there's a lawsuit with himself and Mr. Altman,
right?
Because he felt he was misled, and obviously, allegedly, he's wound up dictators like Mr. Putin, etc.
Yeah.
But now he's made the fatal mistake, possibly, of winding up the little people. So some examples. Mike Butcher, who we know very well, TechCrunch European editor, has posted onto X, ironically, explicit instructions about, and I quote, how to piss off Musk. So which goes, in case you're interested, hey UK, do you really want to piss off Musk? Open the settings page on X on the web, not app. Select the privacy and safety button, select Grok, and uncheck the box that reads, allow your post, blah, 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 and results with Grok to be used for training. How explicit is that for a rebellion against X?
Yeah,
pretty spot on.
Yeah, but I think the point is that we can agree or disagree with either Musk or the little people who are responding. But what are the consequences here for Musk himself?
Well, let's think about it. Let's look at another little person, Sir Keir Starmer, who's the UK Prime Minister. His quote: Let me also, I'm not going to do the voice. Let me also say to large social media companies and those who run them, violent disorder was clearly whipped up online. That is also a crime. It is happening on your premises, and the law must be upheld everywhere.
And let's not forget that, for those that don't know, our current Prime Minister used to be our Director of Public Prosecutions.
Yeah.
So when it comes to prosecuting companies, he probably knows a bit.
Yep, and he's locked up a lot of people in the last few weeks.
Yep.
One of the most prominent BBC journalists says, and I quote, "I've also seen a number of high-profile account holders writing that they are leaving the platform as a result of all the toxicity. Is this the digital town square Musk dreamed of? If this is free speech absolutism, do we want it?"
Well, deeply philosophical discussion there. It's hard to say ultimately what to make of all this provocation. We know Musk is Musk. We know what we're getting.
Yeah, but he's got to carry some or all of the public with him because he needs someone to buy his products, right? Yeah. And they don't all want to be Trump voters in the US, right? Who I'm sure are right on board. He needs to think about his broader audience. It seems like some basic comm strategy would help here. And to do otherwise and to provoke as Elon just has seems hubristic. You forget your customers at your peril, Elon.
Yeah.
What can we take? What do we learn from all of this?
Well, one, we think, does he really need to do this? Or is his ego taking over? Perhaps it is time he should at least apologise and then, carry on with a lot of his work, which is highly important to the modern global economy. But if we were to say to him, what would be the sort of 3 things you need to do right now to maintain your category leadership in communications terms, what do we think they would be?
Well, I think the first one, and obviously is a clear one, is that, we do need you to be bold, but you need to be a bit smarter than this. I think secondly, hold your tongue, right? Choose your battles, Elon. We don't need you at war with the BBC, TechCrunch, and the UK Prime Minister. And I think thirdly, you probably got some recommendations, recommended reading.
Some readings, the recommended reading. Yes, I would recommend that he grabs hold a copy of Daniel Goleman's seminal work called, unsurprisingly, Emotional Intelligence.
There you go. We end with a recommendation for a bit of reading for Elon.
Think there are too many lookalike tech companies chasing the same markets? We do. We think it's because so few tech startups are able to build and lead their own categories. What matters most is to be different. Stop following and start building your own unassailable leadership position today. Working with the category design gurus at Categorical brings decades of differentiation expertise to your team. Book a consultation from our website today and we will send you our one-pager detailing how to start designing your own highly differentiated category.
You've got to learn to earn. Okay, it's that time again. It's time to learn and earn. And so, what are we going to learn this time, Professor Simnett?
Well, I've been musing over recent weeks about what I think is the modern day SaaS playbook and wondering if it's really the route to sustained category leadership.
Whoa, so you're thinking maybe that time's moved on. It's time to call time on the old playbook and get ourselves some new books.
Well, I think we need to have a good look at it. If we think about it in recent years, SaaS companies have come out of nowhere and created brand new categories. But it strikes me that the current playbook appears to have its own destruction built in. And I'm wondering, is this tech and financial flywheel a good thing, or do customers ultimately suffer?
Well, they say all good things come to an end. And perhaps it is that SaaS, for its own sake, SaaS, cloud-enabled software, software as a service, software that you buy on the drip, you consume and as you buy, and rather than just buying a massive piece of capability, maybe, just maybe, is old news.
Maybe that's true. But if you were to imagine that the stages that you need to build a significant SaaS firm, it sort of might go like this. First thing you've got to do is clearly think category by reframing customer expectations in an existing market and focus on solving an existing customer problem. So as we've talked about before, dirty, expensive, inconvenient cabs, maybe synchronous broadcast TV, or perhaps expensive, inflexible accounting packages. After somebody has identified this customer need and figured out how they might be able to satisfy it. They then go out, usually on the West Coast, to raise huge amounts of capital to actually create a solution to the problem and then enter and redefine the market. Now, what do they usually do? They usually use some of that capital to subsidize pricing.
Right, because they don't need to make a profit as they're building out their competition. They can keep throwing punches, quote unquote, for free, obviously very VC funded, to try and inculcate them into the incumbents market, because they're a SaaS company and what they're offering looks, superficially at least, different to the incumbent.
The point is that the incumbents are unable to compete due to lack of investment. They haven't got that great big VC fund behind them. So they basically buy their way into a new category by capturing market share and raise more money at ever higher valuations. It's a great internal flywheel.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I remember sitting beside, at the time, a chap who was the CEO of Sage, and pointing out to him that Xero was eating his lunch. And he reassured me, not very convincingly, I will say, that not to worry about Xero. And sure enough, Sage was developing and has developed its own SaaS product, which I believe is the majority of its services right now. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And if I was playing the waiting game as an incumbent and trying to pick off SaaS companies, now's a pretty good time, because as we know, people are calling the top. So if I'm a non-profitable, highly VC-funded SaaS company, and I'm now hit this era of you better make some profits, I'm looking pretty vulnerable to the incumbents.
Even in more, shall we say, stable times, what happens after the significant market share has been grabbed and all that money keeps coming in at ever higher valuations? The founders and the VCs cash out.
Yep.
Either to new investors, to an IPO, or even sale to an incumbent that can't organically grow its share quickly enough.
It's a very valid exit clause for the SaaS company that has not quite reached category leadership, but is looking very pretty to the winking incumbent who needs to get its SaaS game together.
Indeed.
Now, that's normal times, but right now, let's think about where we are. The IPO market is pretty much dried up, certainly in the US. The secondary market, which was a good way to keep the party going, because you could just sell a few shares, keep some of the founders happy, work your way towards profitability. That's dried up a little bit as well. And so even the most optimistic of teams looking at the valuation of their shares dropping have got to be looking around. And then you add in the mass tech layoffs, some more this week from Cisco, and you start asking yourself, what is the advantage of creating a SaaS company?
The way I've been thinking about this over recent weeks is what happens after the VCs and the founders have effectively cashed out and reality starts to dawn? Well, the traditional thing is they bring in a CEO who's probably, inverted commas, seasoned, as it usually says in the press release, in order to make the business actually viable. Until this point, this massive market grab, it isn't a viable business. So what happens? Prices get increased, costs get cut, as you say, people have to go, and tiers start to get introduced. Now, what happens then? All the customers who have followed this new category as it comes in get disappointed. And if they're not locked in permanently, they essentially look for new solutions. And what does that do? It paves the way for the category ambitious to start this tech finance innovation cycle over and over again.
And we need to do much more of this in Europe. So this creative destruction isn't an entirely negative thing. We recently spoke to a cashed out existing entrepreneur, fabulous company, very profitable, and he decided to make the move to cash out to private equity. What did he have? He had a great ride. He got a very large check and the chance to start again. In some ways, maybe this is the upside of SaaS having a downturn right now.
It could be. This is a very smart playbook, and it nets founders and VCs billions. But to the end user, it's sometimes hard not to feel like they've become little more than pawns in a recurring tech and finance chess game. And I'm asking myself, is this really what category design should really about? Or is this just modern creative destruction that in itself drives innovation? I mean, if you look at it, those three companies referred to earlier, thinly disguised, Uber has undoubtedly increased customer choice and utility, at the same time improving the existing cab industry. Netflix has accelerated a shift into streaming and given the consumer Apple TV, Amazon Prime, even iPlayer from the venerable old BBC, and has actually ploughed back billions into the production of new content. And of course, Xero, we talked about before, has taken cloud accounting to millions of new businesses and forced existing players, such as Sage, to which you referred earlier, to innovate for customer benefit. So I was wondering, is this just greed is good in new clothes?
Or is it actually, accidentally even, a very good way for innovation to thrive?
Or should category leadership be built on firmer and some more ethical footings?
There's a thought.
There's a thought. If you've got anything to contribute, you know where to get us. What does the future hold? Let's look into our crystal ball.
All right, it's that time. We'd love you to look into your crystal ball. What are you seeing there?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things I think we've noticed, certainly over recent years, is that the idea of tech job creation is not actually as helpful to politicians as they would hope, because I think they fundamentally misunderstand the idea of job creation through tech.
They think tech jobs are wonderful. So, for instance, they believe they're really highly paid. You see all of these sort of various growth business parks being set up, lots of growth. Anytime there's an AI data center, everyone's beating their chest and saying how amazing it is that big tech's come in and invested, with a dotted line that they think there's going to be jobs following. But we need to put something on record here, don't we?
Well, I think we do. It's that AI jobs are not the silver bullet, tech jobs are not the silver bullet. The silver bullet is efficiency in the economy.
And so these phrases get bandied about: economic growth, from politicians who mostly, as we've seen from recent gaffes, let's call them, know nothing about tech. So they constantly tout AI data centers and labs as being somehow able to replace the significant amount of employment that this country once had in the shape of, unfashionably, coal pits, steelworks, car factories, and even the high streets. These things provided mass employment in the industrial age. This is not the same as tech jobs.
It absolutely isn't. They sit there trying to be all tech savvy and future facing in front of the public. But whereas in the sort of the 18th century, the California gold rush left a long tail of employment opportunities. In that case, from farriers to jeans makers and barkeepers and bankers and other less salubrious occupations, that effect will not happen from the implementation of AI itself.
No, if you look around a data center, and there's one not far from here, the Microsoft's new data center being built in Acton. If you look around a data center, there's a ton of capital being deployed, a lot of money, racks of servers and other appliances, all rammed these days with these really super expensive, hundreds of thousands of euros, pounds of dollars, GPU chips. There'll also be state-of-the-art backup power. There'll be amazing fire suppression operational technology. There'll be computer vision security. What will there not be? People.
And just to put this into perspective, a worrying perspective, is that these big investments are going to give us AI power. That will affect everybody in white-collar jobs, from accountants to filmmakers, from nurses to architects, who are touched by that AI. Some might escape, some might get replaced, but there's a whole load of jobs, certainly in the UK, which we don't have enough skills in anyway. Everybody from sort of plumbers to electricians and so on, who will be less effective. People are still going to need to get their hair cut. That's fine. That may keep up people in employment, but they create no net gain for the economy in international terms.
Right. In the economics terms, I believe those sorts of professions are called non-tradable.
Yeah.
So a country does not grow richer because you cannot export a haircut, you cannot export a nail polish, etc., etc. But to be a little bit more positive about AI, the tech jobs that the politicians are talking about, I think they have got that wrong. But actually, it's not that they're tech jobs. They are more like tech-assisted, AI-powered jobs for all of these white-collar professions you just mentioned. So I think a useful analogy, for the tech job miracle that these politicians are spouting is the green jobs miracle.
Yeah,
bandied about like this is going to solve the problem of an enlarged welfare state, an aging population, and all of our overblown net zero promises. Don't worry, green jobs.
It is just replacing carbon-based jobs with green jobs. The people who are putting up aerogenerators are the people that were previously doing oil rigs. To do a very simplistic example, those are engineering tasks, but it's essentially just replacement. I don't believe it's net growth.
Right, and your Corgi-registered gas technician who comes around to fix your boiler?
Well, he's going to become very adept at doing electrical boilers. That is just change within sectors. So there's no silver bullet there either.
So I think the politicians really, to cut to the quick here, they're looking for the upside of these tech jobs in the wrong places.
Yep.
You're not going to get northern towns built around a colliery with everybody in the town contributing to the economic output of that one particular service. It ain't going to be like that. And they should stop talking as if these tech jobs are specific things.
Tech has to be seen as pervading into the whole economy, and that's where the discussion has to start.
Yes, it's time for a grown-up conversation. Let's talk about what we mean by technology-enhanced jobs. The economic value is not in one small and potentially shrinking from an employment point of view part of the market. In fact, it pervades the entire economy. And so the upside really is within every sector.
Look, there's Captain Hindsight.
What are you taking us to today, Captain Hindsight?
Okay, well, I'm going to bring in some more lessons from the history of the IT business. And today I thought it'd be quite interesting to look back at Cisco and Linksys. You know, the lessons to be learned actually here are about what can go wrong when you expand at a category peak. So for those of you who are old enough to remember, all conquering internet routing category leader Cisco acquired a company called Linksys for a cool $500 million in 2003.
That seems like a funding round now. But back in the day, that was money.
That was big money.
That was money.
And, you know, why was it big money? Well, you'd have thought it was the most perfect natural fit you could imagine. You know, Cisco would continue catering to larger enterprise organizations.
Nice fat profits.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Linksys brand would keep selling to home, small business, consumer customers, right? So Cisco providing every routing need, right? Problem was, timing really wasn't on their side. Now, that plan might have worked if Linksys' emerging market hadn't quickly become saturated with competitors.
Routers are not that complicated.
You know, massive capacity to make them in the Far East, you know. So, yeah, Netgear, D-Link, you know, quickly emerged, quickly got distribution. And Linksys really failed to benefit from any of Cisco's enterprise-grade shine. Actually, I think Cisco really choked it here. For instance, they only went as far as Linksys by Cisco branding later on when things were looking decidedly sticky.
At this point, you and I were swanning around the very flash Cisco offices out near Heathrow, and there were lots of highly paid, very impressive car driving salespeople. Why on earth would they sully themselves dealing with Linksys when they could sell Cisco kit on nice fat profits?
Well, remember also Cisco was trying to develop a channel. And, you know, you're dead right. All those enterprise sales guys became richer than Croesus, a lot of them, and retired very, very early. But from a strategic point of view, Cisco was looking for category domination in routers. Something else started to go really quite badly wrong. The consumer internet was expanding and the channel was changing. So cable operators were starting to provide and sell their own routers to customers who they were already locked on with.
I'm doing a deal with Sky. I don't also need a branded router. I just take whatever they give me.
And, you know, Cisco had never manufactured its own products anyway, and it allowed product quality at Linksys to slip. I mean, that's the one thing you'd expect. You expect it to be the best. They suddenly realized a little bit too late that things were going wrong, completely redesigned the Linksys range in 2011, but, you know, it made no difference. The die was cast. By 2013, they decided to cut their losses and sell the consumer products division off to Belkin.
Yeah, let me add a little bit of colour on this. It's around this time that a younger version of me rocked up at these very nice offices to interview for a job at the Cisco's new prosumer division. And this was the mad idea, which stupidly I told them instead of just taking the check, that they were going to unite the little phone thing, the flip phone that they had, and the WebEx, which was the predecessor to Zoom, let's not forget, and put it all into some sort of like prosumer, consumer version of Cisco. They just didn't have the DNA for it. They really overstretched themselves at this point, and possibly that's what happened with the Linksys.
The lesson here is if you're going to go for a category expansion, if you're already a category leader, understand that the dynamics of the ecosystem of the acquired company may be very different in those additional market segments, and don't allow the fundamentals that have allowed you to build your category domination, such as in this case, quality, to erode.
I think that's a super important point for anybody that's currently leading in a category. Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you want to learn more, go check our blog posts on becategorical.com.
If you have a category issue, then we can help. Get in touch with us.
And remember, don't be better, be different.